Grant Cardone and Meet Kevin are two of the largest YouTube personalities who invest in real estate, and they have polar opposite viewpoints on real estate investing strategies. Years back, the two had a heated back and forth, which culminated in lawsuits and cease and desist letters, and the whole thing seemed to get out of hand in a TMZ-styled frenzy that ironically ended up with both of them gaining massive exposure and growing their online and real estate businesses. I say ironically because I personally wouldn't think that airing your dirty laundry on social media for the world to see is a good business tactic, but in today's world it seems anything to get clicks and likes will almost certainly make you tons of money, if you monetize it in a way that these two characters have done. One of the debates that Grant and Kevin were having was over managing your own real estate versus having a syndicate manage your real estate. Let's get into what each of their points were, which points were valid and which were not, and how it relates to you and your own real estate plays. I bring up these two guys because if you're watching this video, you've probably heard of them, and possibly even heard their takes on real estate. And I wanted to show my take on this because it seems to be far more nuanced than these two are making it out to be. Grant Cardone runs a relatively large real estate syndication company. They take in money from outside investors, usually pair it with a good bit of their own capital, then borrow a large amount from banks in order to buy large real estate opportunities. Grant argues that there is basically no reason to own a single door. In fact, he argues that you should probably not even own your own home, unless you are worth millions of dollars. He's a proponent of the rent where you live crowd, who believe you should rent your own home, and instead of saving up for a down payment to get out of renting and into your own slice of the American dream, he argues that you should simply give the money over to someone who syndicates real estate investments. His thinking is, rather than owning your own home, that you have to pay a large amount of interest, taxes, insurance, and upkeep on, he thinks you should rent and put the money that you would have saved up for that down payment on your own home into a real estate investment similar to what he operates. But does the math check out here? It turns out there are very few areas of the country where it makes sense to rent opposed to own if you can afford to do so. Mainly because housing values are declining in these areas and will continue to decline for the foreseeable future. Places like Detroit and Baltimore. Owning a home is still the quickest way to building wealth, not investing in syndication investments. The reason being is that you are cutting out rent. And while you are increasing expenses like real estate taxes, insurance, upkeep, if you are living in an area for more than 5 years, you should in theory build significantly more wealth than if you were to rent and invest the difference in a real estate syndication. One of the parts of this equation is the returns of the syndication, of course. The larger real estate syndicators, their returns are just not as impressive as they make them out to be. You'd be very, very lucky to make 7% a year over time, which isn't even really beating the S&P. The reason being is that these companies are large, have a relatively small pool of properties that they are all bidding on, and therefore the potential profit is smaller per dollar invested than if you were to say, invest in a smaller operation that is bidding on smaller units that may be in more distress. The big guys always want the fancy glass towers that they can brag about, but the returns, while working with much larger figures, are smaller per dollar invested. Someone may be able to invest $100,000 into a project that is a $2 billion project and get a return of 8% over 3 years annualized. The smaller projects tend to be more risky, but I have deemed the risk to reward to be sufficient to invest in these projects rather than in REITs or larger syndications like grants. It very well may work out that if you rented instead of purchased the home and invested the difference in a smaller real estate group that doesn't bid against the larger firms, you could be better off. Meet Kevin argues the opposite of Grant. He says that basically everyone should have their own home first, and then go out and start investing in real estate by buying under market deals, fixer-uppers, and putting in some sweat equity, and then renting them out. But doing all this while working a 9-to-5 job 5 days a week is just not doable for most people. So while I do agree that you should start out by buying your own house, I don't agree that the average person can just start buying rentals in the way that he is describing. If you have a 9-to-5, you can buy a rental property as a second property that is already fixed up and rented out and managed professionally. But I highly doubt that you could wake up at 7:30 to go to work and then get home and then drywall the house. I just don't think that you're going to have the time to be able to do that. Some people think that they can do it on the weekends as a hobby, but this isn't a hobby. It requires professionals. Everyone is different, has different goals and objectives, different situations. Markets differ from city to city, from street to street even. So the advice I give is rather general, but generally speaking, I think that you should try to buy your own home as quickly as possible. Once you have a steady job and have settled down in a location that you find that you want to stay for 5+ years. Once you have that house, if you can afford it, either purchase a rental property that is already in tip-top shape and professionally managed, or find a competent manager. If you don't feel comfortable owning rentals directly, then the other best option is to find a smaller real estate company that has a track record of providing decent returns that you can invest in. This is much harder said than done, and once you find this golden goose, you should treat him or her right.